so we can post it on our website. What we're going to do today is we're going to just go over the general features of the CS time clock. Some of you would know the clock very well by now, but there may be one or two that doesn't, or you won't know of all the features that's available. Alright, let's give it a go. What we're going to do is we're going to do a quick overview of the clock. We're going to look at the clock reader types, a quick look at what you can do in the web interface, access control, job costing, how to connect to the clock, replication between multiple clocks, multiple cards per employee is one of the main features, and we'll quickly discuss child clocks as well. Okay, the CS time clock is mainly used for time and attendance purposes, but you can also use it for access control and job costing. Depending on the clock's model, each clock has 1 to 3 relays, which you can use to trigger electronic door locks and or sirens. The later clock models, especially the 3350 and the 3370, can each support an external reader. You can also add a second or third external reader if you disable one of the built-in readers on the clock. All the clocks have a built-in keypad reader, which can be used for a person to clock with a PIN number, a personal identification number. The keypad reader is also used to access the clock menu for administration purposes, if you want to add an employee, remove an employee, set the time on the clock, etc., etc. All the CS time clocks also has a built-in proximity reader, which you can use to clock with the tags or a proximity card. The 3370 comes with an optical fingerprint reader. Employees can clock using the fingerprint identification or fingerprint verification, and the verification can be done with the prox reader or with the keypad reader. Basically, you can set up a CS time clock so that your employees can clock using any of the 3 readers or 4 readers on the clock. Each clock has got a built-in web interface, which can be accessed when the clock is connected to your network or connected directly to a laptop or computer. Now, the web interface allows you to manage your employees, their cards, their clockings, their hours, leave, etc. If we have a quick look here at the main screen, you can see a list of employees. That is always the first screen that you'll see when you clock in, or log in, sorry. For each employee, you can go and view their clockings, their daily hours, their card list, and their leave. And also on that screen, you can immediately see who's currently in and who's currently out. This is a screenshot of the list of clockings for all the employees. You can see there the date, the time, employee number, the employee name, the TNA direction, which card or PIN number they use to clock in with, which clock and which reader, and also their access control area. You can change any of the clockings and also delete some of the clockings, and also insert if you have a look at the bottom of the screen. This is a screenshot of the employee daily hours. This screenshot is basically of a clock where advanced hours processing was enabled. You can also disable it, and you'll only see the time between the first in clocking and the last out clocking for the day for each employee. You can see what the employee clockings are and the hours calculated under normal, overtime, etc., etc. Payroll hours. Your payroll hours is a sum of the daily hours for the period selected, here between the from and the to date at the top. We've recently brought in a great functionality where you can set up payroll balancing. So if your employee is not supposed to work more than 40 hours for their week, it will show, or it will automatically total everything up. Anything over and above the 40 hours will go into overtime. This is a screenshot of one or two leave records. The nice thing of the CS TimeClock is you can enter the percentage of the day which must be assigned to leave. You can also set up your leave records so that you can change it so that it's paid or unpaid. And your balancing you can also set up to be included in your payroll, or your leave in your payroll balancing. So in other words, if a person had leave during the week, that can count towards their, let's say they're 40 hours for the week, and anything over and above that can go to overtime. You can export your hours to a CSV file, and the CSV file, I'm sure everyone knows, is a comma separated value file which can be opened in a spreadsheet like Excel, and they can edit their hours in Excel or export it to any other software package which can make use of it. We also have a couple of payroll extracts built into the clock, which one can use to export directly to the payroll. Of course, the web interface, you can do a lot more with it. You can go and set up your access control settings. You can set up your processing settings like your leave types, your holidays, employee schedules, etc., etc. You can set up your clocks for the different readers, the different child clocks, any additional peer clocks on the network as well. That's just a couple of the features that is available on the clock. Okay, access control. Anti-passback. You would preferably need two readers to confirm that it is an in-clocking or an out-clocking. Anti-passback means you can't clock into an area that you're already in. Pathing, same thing as an anti-passback. You would need to be in a specific area to clock into another area. Access rights, is the employee allowed to clock at a clock or clock into an area? Your time zones, if you want to prevent people from clocking in too early or clocking out too late, if you don't want them to work on or clock in. Yeah, that's a bit of a funny one. You can't prevent someone to clock in too late. And another feature is the locked mode. You can lock the clock so it won't accept any in-clockings. Anyone who's clocked in before the clock was locked can still clock out while the clock is in locked mode. The lock mode can be set up by an administrator. Alright, job costing. Job costing is at the moment, you need TNA 5 software to do job costing with this clock. You can customize the clock's behavior to ask for a job clocking using Bundy scripts. At the moment there is a default script on there where you can clock onto a job. If you want to change it, let us know. Basically, we need the client's requirements so that we can set up the clock for their specific needs. Okay, connectivity. As you know, you can use the clock as a standalone clock. In other words, you basically just plug power into the clock. Then you can download clockings from the keypad menu onto your USB drive. If you're using TNA 5, you can synchronize with the USB stick. It will download the database onto the USB stick, which you plug into your computer, and then synchronize onto TNA to get your clockings for your employees. You can also connect a computer or a laptop directly to the clock using a crossover network cable if it's a small site and there's no LAN to speak of. You can use TNA then to speak to the clock, and you can set up the clock just for TNA, or you can use the web interface to manage your hours and clockings. You can set up multiple clocks on a company LAN or WAN and connect it to the clocks with TNA or the web browser. The web browser, you would currently have to log into each clock separately, but TNA will collect clockings from all the clocks on your network. As you can see, you can use different models on the same network. Okay, peer replication. Peer replication will happen when you're on a LAN or WAN. It can only happen on a LAN and a WAN. You will need to set up your clocks in their clock setup as each other's peers. So what will happen when you have clocks set up as peers? Basically, they will synchronize employees' TNA direction, their in and out direction, as well as their access area. So each clock will know where an employee is at the moment. This is important in cases where you need it for pathing, as an example. The main thing, of course, is that you would have to have the employees with the same employee numbers and the same card numbers on each clock. These clocks will also synchronize their time. It will basically have one parent or main clock with the lowest serial number, and that clock will synchronize time with the other clocks to keep them synchronized as closely as possible. Okay, one main feature of the CS time clock is that you can use multiple cards per employee. For those of you who are familiar with the older Cape clocks, you can only have one card per employee. This clock allows you to add a PIN number, a proximity card for an employee, and you can have multiples for each employee. As you can see with the 3370, which I showed you before, you can also have a fingerprint technology on the clock, and the fingerprint is basically assigned to a card number on the clock. Okay, child clocks are basically like dumb terminals. You have a child clock which is connected via RS485 cable to a parent clock. This clock doesn't have any processing capability. If there is a loss of communication with the parent clock, it will go offline. You can't use it at all. Basically, all of the current clocks, except the 3370, is currently available as child clocks. And you can have different models connected to each other. So you can have a 3350 connected as a child to a parent, which is a 3370. So the 3370 can be a parent clock, but it can't be a child clock. Okay, that was just like I said, a quick overview of the features. I'm basically done, so if you want to start asking questions, let's get to it and see how much we can cover. Let's see here.
Hi, Karine. Can the clocks replicate fingerprints between the clocks?
Not at the moment. That is scheduled for the future.
How soon will that be able to happen?
Rob, can I leave this to you? Okay, yeah, I'll have to find out.
Okay, and then one
Probably,
other question.
yeah, sorry.
Sorry. When will we be able to connect more than one reader to the fingerprint clocks as well?
You're asking me difficult questions today. That's all development questions. You'll get it when it's out. That's the simple answer. Okay, let's see. Yes, we do have balancing of payroll hours in the CS time clock. That's a question we just got. Sorry, let me rephrase that. There's a tutorial on the website which will help you set up the balancing. Sorry, just for the pausing there, I was getting some feedback. Let me just see if I can show you. All right. Let me just see if you can see the screen here. Okay, this is a view of a clock currently that we've got online. You can set up your payroll exports from that link there, and then the balancing is set up on the payroll export. So I'm just going to show you a quick view. Right, you can set up the balancing for extra time, normal time, overtime, Saturday, and these are the time categories that is currently included, which you can balance. And let me just go to peer-to-peer replication, Peter, that is currently available. It's a bit tricky. It's not tricky to set it up. You just need to know how. Let me just get that. Peer-to-peer replication. Under hardware, you've got your peer clocks. And you basically need to add the clocks in there with their serial numbers, their IP addresses, and the ports. And you need to add them on all the clocks. If you need any assistance, you can of course contact us, and we'll assist you to set that up. Okay, Johan, you've got a question. Sorry, clicks are a bit slow. Let me just unmute you. There we go, Johan.
Yes, I just want to find out as well. We found that if a person's finger is very cold, it doesn't read your fingerprint as well.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
We found on the fingerprint clocks that when your finger is very cold, it does not read your fingerprint. Is there anything we can do to prevent that?
Get them to rub their hands together before they clock.
Karine, I haven't heard of this. This is probably the first time I've heard of this.
Okay.
Is this a common problem?
Johan? Or
Johan? Was that Johan?
I'm sorry, well, I couldn't hear what you said. Yes.
Rob? Freddie, Rob basically asked whether that's a common problem, where they, when their hands are cold, that they can't clock.
Yeah, at one client we have found that it is a common problem there.
say that we must look at that specific client or maybe even at that reader. It's something we've taken care of or under the test bench here, because it is a problem other clocks have got or other models of clocks out in the field have got. So I'd like to sort of get more details on that. I wouldn't expect it to be a problem because it's an optical reader, not a capacitance reader class. So heat should have no relevance to the read rate of that reader.
Hi, this is David. I just want to find out, I've had like 2 or 3 clients that when you enroll the people and the fingers are very cold, it doesn't take the fingerprint until they warm their fingers.
David, where is this? Is this in the Highveld or in the Cape Town area?
No, it's they closed.
Sorry? No, it's not Bridget. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, it is in the Highveld area, and we've had some clocks in the office here that we tested that the same thing happened as well.
I think we must certainly look at that. It's the first report I've heard of that happening. I think we will get back to you on that. We will put it in a colder, air-conned room, and we'll get back to you on that.
Rob, it's Johan here.
Yes, Sean.
I found a client, they installed the fingerprint clock themselves, and they installed it in the reception area, but at an angle, and when the sun shines through the windows of the reception area and on the fingerprint reader, it actually reads that as a fingerprint reader, as a fingerprint on the fingerprint reader. Have you encountered this before?
Does it give you a bad card? In other words, does it give you a invalid card, or does it pass as a fingerprint reader?
It just says no fingerprint match the whole time.
No fingerprint match. No, I haven't encountered that at all. And our clock in front here in the offices also gets sunlight. Again, I would have to take that and test it. Does this go into direct sunlight, or what happens?
No, I think it's maybe reflecting from maybe the tiles or something like that, or onto the reader or something like that. But it is in the reception area with windows and stuff. So the sun, if it's at the exact angle, it does do that.
Okay.
Not each time, at a certain time of the morning or day.
Yeah, it's a good point, Johan. I'm thinking that possibly what happens is if the reflection or the light reflection changes, i.e. when someone walks over the floor or in front of the window, you get this pulse of dark and light onto the clock reader, and that could be picked up as a attempted fingerprint. Yeah, certainly we can look at that, maybe just refine that a little bit more.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions from Australia. Mainly about peer replication. Peter is asking whether you can clock in and out on any clocks, sorry, Ellie, I'm not sure who's who there, whether you can clock in and out on any clock on a 3-clock site. Yes, if the clocks are set up as peers, you can. Next question, what if clocks are located in different states in Australia? How does the synchronized time work? Okay, Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but basically if you set up each clock in their different time zones, the clocks will synchronize their time correctly.
Yes, as far as I know, they still synchronize correctly because they use GMT to synchronize, and then they add the time zone to that time zone. It is important that the time zone has to be correct for that to work.
Okay. Let's see. Job costing. How can we get customized job clockings from a reseller perspective, or do we always have to revert back to CapeSoft for customization? Yes. Basically, I think it's a good idea to always ask us if the client has specific requirements. As I say, at the moment there is a default way to clock onto a job onto the clock. If they want to use a specific tag to link that to a job, something like that, or change the sequence of events, I think it's a good idea to get back to us and just ask us whether it's possible, and we will basically write a Bundy script for you for that client.
Corinne, I think we will also have, in the short foreseeable future, we spoke about it this morning, that we will have an example presentation of how to add a Bundy script to the clock. The longer term vision in the next week or two is to actually have an example Bundy script or available on the web, which you can essentially cut and paste onto the clock interface and change the behavior of your clock. If you'd like to fine-tune the behavior of that Bundy script, that say for the default examples we've got available to you, that's probably something that's going to be a lot easier and quicker for us to do than you to go through a 120-page manual and try and work out all the parameters. But you're most welcome to try, although I wouldn't advise it. So yes, we'd like to set up some defaults on the web, which you can basically download at any time, and there will be a video to show you how to set that up on the clock.
Rob, I believe Peter would like to discuss the peer replication a bit more. I'm just going to unmute him quickly. All right, Peter, can you go for it?
G'day, Corinne. G'day, Rob. Thanks for that. Good presentation. I just wanted to just clarify a bit more about this peer-to-peer process to help me understand whether we can use this to allow people to clock in and out on multiple clocks on the same site.
Peter? Hello?
Can you hear me, Rob?
Yes, I can hear you. Peter, can I ask you a question? Are these clocks standalone clocks, or are they using TNA?
Yeah, good question, Rob. These are standalone clocks in all these situations. They're 2, 3, and 4 clocks, typically 5 clocks sometimes. In multiple site situations, we've got a lot of customers with that type of environment that require people to be able to clock in and out at any terminal. And peer-to-peer sounds like it might be a solution for that, but maybe I've missed something here. I'm not sure, but if that's a solution, that would be good. If it's not, then if you could clarify that for me, that would be great.
At the moment, peer-to-peer replication replicates the direction of an employee from one clock to another clock. So at the site where you have got 3 clocks, you can clock in at clock number 1. That clock, if set up correctly, will update the direction to the other 2 clocks, and clock number 2 and 3 will then clock you out if you then go and clock there. The provisor is that you have to have that employee set up on all 3 clocks, clocks number 1, 2, and 3. But once that is done, he can gladly clock in and out at any clock without direction loss.
Okay, that's good. That sounds like that's good, but can we view this data the same way? Can we view this data through the web interface, through one time clock to see, 4 time clocks in one spot, or like a primary, secondary situation that we're accustomed to?
Yes, that is a very good question. Peter, at the moment, the replication of the direction is the only information that's replicated. The actual data, the clocking itself or the employee information is not replicated. And that is it is sort of the thing that we're working on at the moment to allow users to log into clock number 1 and see all the information, irrespective of which clock he clocked in or out at. So yes, direction will be maintained, but you would have to go look at each and every clock to see the events. A little bit later, and we're hoping sooner than later, we should have what we call the hosting feature of the clock, where the one clock becomes the host between multiple of clocks, and you can log into that clock and see all the clocking data for your site, irrespective of where a person clocked.
Excellent. It sounds like the hosting feature is what we're looking for, Rob, and there's a lot of customers here in Australia that would be welcoming that feature when it's available.
I see that as a fundamental feature or very important feature for standalone clocks, Peter. I think especially with all the sales that you've done down under, the constraint, and we've envisaged this feature to be ready about 3 months ago, but we've had some we had to work around space constraints on the clock, and we needed to create more space on the clock to be able to implement that feature, and that's taken us a little bit longer than we wanted. That seems to be under the belt quite nicely at the moment, and we've moved ahead into completing the hosting feature. One additional benefit of the hosting feature on sites with multiple clocks is that you can set up more than one host on a site. In other words, if you've got 5 clocks, you may set up clock 1 and 5 as a host. In other words, users can log in their clock number 5 and see all the data, or clock number 1 and see all the data.
Rob, that's an extremely nice feature. As I think about it out loud, that's a great feature.
It's helpful for WAN systems because you don't then have to go through a WAN, or in your sites in Australia, for instance, you've got sites across Australia which are shared on a WAN, and it makes accessibility to that information a lot faster. So people in Victoria can use clock number 5 to access all the data, and some staff in New South Wales can use clock number 1 to view all the data.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That's so that hosting that you're referring to, Rob, that's something that people ask us about every single day. When customers talk about something every day, you go, there's something there, there's something in that. That is something that's asked about every single day from existing customers, potential customers, past customers. So
yeah, it's the feature we're working on at the moment, and I really believe it's as important as well.
Cool. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Pete.
Okay, great. Just 1 or 2 more questions about replication. Mark is asking whether the replication or the syncing works via TCP IP. Mark, yes, you need network connectivity to do it. And in answer to Gareth's question, you can't replicate using USB. So you can't take a USB from the one clock and go and sync it to another clock, because as soon as you sync, you're going to update your clockings, etc., etc. So I would not recommend that.
Kareem, can I give you an absolute heart attack here?
Hey, I'm ready to learn anything new every day.
Okay. Who asked? Was that Mark that asked, or Gareth?
No, that was Gareth.
Gareth. All right. I've been busy with a little program called the Offline CS Time Clocks program, which is a product that will be released sort of in about 2 weeks freely to everyone, but will be released this Friday to a selected customer, which allows that customer to update the employee database from a single clock, copy that whole database across to another clock, and transfer that data via USB to that clock. So typically what would happen is this program gets installed on the common USB drive that's used by a company who collects data. from, say, 3 USB clocks or USB clocks. And you run the program and you can edit the employee details on that program for each specific clock, that offline clock that this person's got. The immediate benefit is suddenly on USB or offline clocks, he can now change names so that when the employee swipes on the clock, the employee will see his name. The additional benefit is that he can now copy that database that he set up on clock number 1 across to clock number 2. Take the USB flash drive. He has to use that little program to do that. He then takes the USB flash drive, puts it into clock number 2, and clock number 2 will be updated to give this or show the same information that was on clock 1.
Okay, what about the clocking directions?
The clocking direction goes with that, yes.
Okay, all right.
I told you I was going to give you a heart attack.
It's a good heart attack.
I think Peter will. He knows the site. He's got a site in Australia which have got 20 clocks, and the clocks are all over the place in a very confined area, and it's just impossible for someone to walk up to 20 clocks and go and change names on each and every clock. So we've devised a way of updating information on all offline clocks by just sticking in the USB drive from one clock to another.
Okay, great. Rob Johannes asking if we can give them an idea when the fingerprint replication will be ready.
Yeah, fingerprint replication between offline, there's two types of replication. The replication between standalone clocks and replication between TNA. Clocks that have linked up with TNA, the fingerprints will automatically be updated to all the clocks linked to TNA. So that is already in place and that works. For standalone clocks without TNA, the fingerprint replication will basically be available with the hosting feature that I discussed earlier. In other words, the ability to see all the common data of all the clocks on one single clock. As that comes, that will give you the fingerprint replication at the same time. We hope it's going to be available very, very soon, and we're working quite hard to get that done as a very high priority. So hosting and fingerprint replication between clocks at the same time.
Okay.
Does that answer Johan's question?
Probably not as nicely as you would have liked. I guess you would want a date, but you and I both know that's not possible.
I can give it. We can deliver it tomorrow, but it won't work. Is that all right like that?
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. Okay, then another question from Oz. Basically, they want a bit of a clarification on the payroll balancing. I think the confusion is that you need to set it up under payroll exports. All right.
Yes.
The thing is, the payroll exports, you don't need to actually export it. It's a way to set it up. So basically, you can just go and say, as I've done here, you've got a 40-hour week. You don't need to go and put in any of these export options here. It's not a requirement. It's just basically a way to centralize or a way to have more than one type of balancing. So you can balance, you can have one group of employees that works 40 hours a week. You can have salary employees that would need, let's say, 180 hours a month as an example, etc., etc. The payroll balancing, after you set it up, you need to link it to your employees. And when it's linked to an employee, as you can see here, if you go into the employees, it's a very quick training session. You can go and assign a payroll type, and that's where you assign the balancing, the payroll balancing. As soon as that is assigned, if you view your payroll hours or you export your payroll hours, the balancing will be applied to the payroll hours that you're viewing. Okay, I hope that answers the question.
Okay. I think what we've done here is we have assigned the balancing parameters to a payroll extract. So it does, it's a one-place stop if you want to set up a payroll extract for, say, your wages people and your monthly paid people. Typically, if your wages staff who've got who are monthly paid, if they have the same payroll and your wages staff who are weekly paid have the same payroll, you will still set up two payroll extracts. The payroll extract parameters would be the same, but your balancing rules would be different. And you attach that payroll extract to the employee, which means that all his calculation rules for a payroll period end is then applied according to his payroll extract. So slightly different to what we've done at TNA. We've done the balancing rules and the payroll format all in one place to keep it more intuitive. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. All right.
Corinne, the other thing is, I know we're going to make a specific video or a webinar about setting up payroll balancing.
Yes.
That's certainly in the pipeline as well.
Yeah. Jim is asking, has the database restore function been added to the web interface yet? He says he's running out of USB sticks.
The answer to that is I'm working on it, and it was supposed to be released last week, but it will probably be released middle of next week. So say to Jim, I can make him or if Jim can hear me, I can make you a promise it would be released in 119I, or the version after H. That will be available.
All right.
I think that request is as popular as the hosting request.
I can imagine. Okay, then payroll export question. Johan just wants to know, there's the payroll export that's in for VIP is not, what's missing is VIP Classic. I would say if there is a need for it, we can always add the VIP Classic export to the CS TimeClock. So I mean,
VIP in South Africa is as huge as MyOb in Australia, and you know, some of the other payroll packages in the UK. So certainly we will support the VIPs by default and the MyObs by default. I think all we need is just to get pointed in the right direction. In other words, if Johan says VIP Classic, here's the download the format from their website over here, and we'll do that and add it into the list of available payroll extracts. I think this is very much a feedback process, payroll extracts in the CS TimeClock. If you let us know which format you require, we'll add it into the CS TimeClock. What we try and do, though, is we try and keep to the mainstream payroll packages. In other words, if you get to a customer who's written his own payroll package, now wants you to make a very specific export for him, I would rather convince the customer to change his interface so that he can accept any of the standards that are available. Otherwise, what we end up in the CS TimeClock is 400 payroll extracts, out of which 299 are only being used by one customer.
okay. Any other questions? Anyone who wants to raise their hands to ask a question?
I can't see any hands.
No, me neither. Oh, wait, there's one. Let me unmute that. Australia, you have a go.
Thanks, Corinne. I was really just raising my hand to satisfy Rob, which we like to do.
Thanks.
Rob, there's a hand raised.
It was lonely out here.
Yeah, that's okay. Excellent. Good presentation. I don't have any other questions at this stage. Just looking for that replication that everybody's looking for.
I think arising from this, we'll try and tighten down on a estimated delivery date for that replication, or what we call hosting. Certainly, I'll get back to everyone on that. And then from Jim's side, the restore function via the web interface due mid next week, and the USB offline program sort of formally due to everyone in about 2 weeks from now.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Look forward to it, and look forward to the next instalment of CS TimeClock, South Africa.
Thank you, Jim. Sorry, Peter. Thank you, Peter.
That's Peter. I'm the good-looking one. Come on.
I haven't seen Jim, so I can't comment on that.
Can't you tell I'm the short one?
Thanks, Peter. All right.
I think what we're trying to do with this webinar is we're going to, from now on.
Oops, sorry, Rob, just a sec there. I've clicked the wrong button here. Sorry.
Yeah, you say that, but I think you really wanted to mute me, Corinne.
Yeah, you see, I didn't know that mute all includes the panelists, so sorry about that.
What we're going to be doing in the future is we're going to be breaking the CS TimeClock down into little modules. How to set up payroll balancing, how to set up access control, how to set up peers in more specific detail. And each webinar will be available as a download afterwards from the web to give more insight to the users out there on specific topics, as opposed to making one massive webinar about the whole CS TimeClock.
Yeah. All right. So you can look forward to some more webinars. As soon as we've scheduled it, we'll let you all know, and we'll also post it on the website's homepage. Okay. There's no more questions, no hands. I'm going to end this presentation now. Rob, thank you
Corinne,
for the
I
input.
think I'd just like to say,
yes?
I think we're probably going to be looking at a webinar sort of coming Friday again. But if Fridays are always sort of, in my mind, a good day to do it, but I know from in Australia, when we start doing the webinar, it might be a bit late already in Australia. So if the Southern Hemisphere has got a sort of a standard day which would be more practical, they must please let us know. Otherwise, we'll try and squeeze in one every Friday.
Okay. I think it's a good idea. Right, thank you everyone for attending. I hope we answered a lot of your questions and you got to know the clock a bit better. As Rob said, you'll be hearing from us again, and hope you all have a good day further on. Thank you very much. Goodbye.